Stop pretending you're a hero. Look at you, wearing that ridiculous uniform just to steal the spotlight at my celebratory dinner. A low-class desk clerk doesn't belong in a room full of high society visionaries.
My older brother's mocking voice cut through the air like a knife. The upscale classical music in the grand ballroom seemed to instantly fade. 85 guests, including prominent city developers, wealthy investors, and members of the local elite, froze mid-conversation, turning to lock their eyes directly on me. My brother, Julian Vance, stood at the center of the room, beneath a glittering crystal chandelier, holding a silver flute of champagne. Beside him stood my mother, Victoria, dressed in a designer silk gown, nodding along with a cold, judgmental sneer plastered across her face. I stood near the entryway, wearing my sharp, immaculate Army intelligence uniform. I had literally just stepped out of a tactical military vehicle, fresh off a grueling 12-month deployment in a high-threat zone overseas. I hadn't even slept, driving straight to the venue because my mother had sent an urgent message demanding my presence. "Julian, please," I said, my voice tight as I fought back the overwhelming exhaustion and the sudden sharp sting of humiliation. "The only matter is celebrating my new tech startup, and a basic grunt like you is ruining the guest list," Julian shouted, louder, ensuring every single person in the room could hear his insults. "While you were playing soldier in the dirt for pennies, I secured a multi-million-dollar venture capital contract. You're a disgrace and an eyesore to the Vance name, Ashley. Take your cheap boots and get out before I have security throw you out of my gala." Muffled whispers and judgmental murmurs broke out across the crowd of 85 onlookers. Did he really just blast his own sister in front of everyone? Well, Julian is the one bringing wealth to the family now. A low-level soldier just doesn't fit their high society image. How incredibly awkward. My mother stepped forward, casually waving a manicured hand toward the exit. "Do what your brother says, Ashley. You're embarrassing us. Go back to your barracks where you belong." An agonizing wave of emotional pain crashed heavily against my chest. My hands began to tremble slightly inside my uniform pockets. I was an active-duty Army intelligence officer, a decorated captain who decoded high-risk enemy movements to save hundreds of tactical operators. The sheer cruelty of my own family was a physical blade twisting in my heart. I turned on my heel and marched out into the freezing night air, the heavy glass doors of the ballroom slamming shut behind me. But my toxic family wasn't done. The very second my boots touched the wet asphalt of the parking lot, my phone buzzed violently. It was a text message from Julian. "By the way, loser, Mom just officially signed over the legal titles of grandfather's private coastal estate entirely to my name. Your entire inheritance is permanently wiped out. Don't even bother going back to your apartment tonight either. The lease is under my company's name, and the smart lock codes have already been changed. Your junk is sitting on the curb." My jaw dropped in absolute shock. Before I could even process the theft of my apartment and inheritance, a second emergency notification flashed across my screen from my military credit union. Alert: high priority defense credit line frozen. Joint authorized user Victoria Vance has withdrawn $165,000 for urgent corporate equity structuring. My mother had just completely drained my active deployment savings account, the hazard duty pay I had earned risking my life in a combat theater. They were systematically destroying my entire life in real time. They thought I was a helpless victim. They honestly believed Julian's tech startup and their lavish lifestyle were self-made miracles. They had absolutely no clue that the only reason they weren't wearing orange jumpsuits or sleeping on a park bench was because of the very sister they had just publicly humiliated and thrown into the dark. 1 year ago, Julian had illegally intercepted high-security government logistics data to fuel his tech platform, triggering an active federal investigation and bringing the family's assets to the brink of total bankruptcy. My mother had crawled to me, sobbing hysterically on the phone. Ashley, please, if Julian gets arrested, our high society status is dead. You have that deep military trust and security clearance from your grandfather. You have to save your brother." Because I valued family honor and foolishly believed in loyalty, I stepped in. I didn't just give them a loan. As a captain in Army intelligence, I used my specialized tactical bonuses, my grandfather's defense legacy fund, and my financial positioning to privately buy out their toxic debts through a secure military holding company. I became the secret, 100% legal owner of Julian's entire tech enterprise and the family's assets. I deliberately hid my name behind an anonymous defense LLC just to protect my brother's fragile, useless ego. My mother knew every single detail, but she had begged me to keep it a secret so Julian wouldn't lose his confidence. And this was my reward. They stole my inheritance, locked me out of my own apartment, wiped out my bank account, and labeled me a fraud in front of 85 prominent people. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. It was a link sent by a fellow intelligence officer. My mother had just posted a public status online for our entire hometown to see. Tonight, my bitter daughter Ashley tried to violently extort money from her successful brother Julian at his celebratory gala. She showed up in uniform just to cause a scene out of pure jealousy. We have officially disowned her. Beware of this fraud. The local community comments were already piling up, instantly threatening my career, my clearance, and my personal reputation. In that exact split second, the heartbreak inside me died completely. The agonizing pain turned into a cold, lethal, razor-sharp military focus. They wanted to wage a war against an Army intelligence officer? They just cleared a path for a tactical shutdown. I looked up toward the edge of the club's driveway. Sitting quietly under the dim streetlights was a heavy, armored, matte black government SUV with tinted windows. The engine was purring low. I noticed a rigid, sharp-looking tactical driver watching me from the front seat, speaking quietly into a secure radio. Someone incredibly high-level had been monitoring my arrival tonight. I didn't know who sent them yet, but it was time to activate my counter-strategy. I dialed my military legal advocate. "Marcus, they just forged the estate titles, drained the defense line, and launched a public smear campaign. Execute the immediate asset foreclosure, liquidate the tech firm, evict them from every property, now." "With pleasure, Captain," Marcus replied coldly. "We are already moving." 10 minutes later, I slammed the heavy double doors of the grand ballroom wide open. I marched straight down the center aisle, the sharp, rhythmic clicks of my combat boots echoing like gunshots in the sudden, stunned silence of the room. The moment Julian saw me, his face twisted in pure rage, and he groaned loudly. "Are you kidding me? The grunt is back. Someone call security and drag this psychotic trespasser out of here right now." My mother rushed forward, her eyes filled with venom. "You ungrateful girl! I told you to leave. The police are on their way to arrest you for extortion." The 85 guests turned, staring at me with deep disgust, murmuring loudly about the envious fraud. I didn't flinch. I stood perfectly rigid, my posture absolute iron. "I'm not leaving, Julian," I said, my voice cutting through the large room with absolute, unyielding authority. "A tactical recalculation has occurred. You might want to check your corporate bank accounts right now." "What are you talking about, you pathetic little desk clerk?" Julian started, but suddenly his chief operating officer rushed into the ballroom, holding a tablet. His face was completely pale, and he was sweating profusely. He whispered frantically into Julian's ear, and Julian's smug grin instantly shattered. He dropped his glass, and it shattered loudly across the marble floor. "What? No, that's impossible. All our venture funds are frozen? The company's shares are entirely locked?" "It's not a mistake, Julian." A loud, thunderous voice roared from the entrance of the ballroom, instantly freezing every person in the room. Everyone spun around. Walking into the dining hall was the towering figure from the black SUV. He walked with an absolute granite posture, his chest completely covered in rows of legendary combat medals and a silver star. On his shoulders shone the undeniable massive stars of a high-ranking commander. It was Major General Thomas Vance, a heavily decorated veteran, my grandfather's closest brother, and the absolute primary trustee of our entire family's legacy defense fund. The 85 guests instantly gasped. Multiple city officials, developers, and wealthy investors in the crowd stood straight up, their faces turning white with absolute terror. My mother staggered back, trying to forge a fake, trembling smile. "Uncle General, sir, what a surprising honor. This is just a minor family misunderstanding." "Silence, Victoria." The sheer power of his booming voice made the entire ballroom freeze once again. Crystal chandelier vibrate overhead. The general marched right past her, stopped directly in front of me, and brought his hand up to his brow in a flawless, razor-sharp salute. "Captain Ashley Vance," General Thomas announced loudly, ensuring every single person in the room heard every syllable clearly. "On behalf of the United States Army and the Department of Defense, I want to personally congratulate you on your safe return. The strategic intelligence asset tracking you ran overseas saved an entire frontline battalion from an ambush this year. You are a decorated hero, and this command will not allow your honor to be defiled by greedy parasites." The room erupted into a wave of horrified gasps. An intelligence officer? She saved an entire battalion. Oh my God, Julian lied to us. They completely stole her deployment money. Marcus, my legal advocate, stepped up right behind the general, opening a heavy briefcase and tossing a stack of certified federal documents directly onto the table in front of Julian's main corporate investors. "Victoria Vance, 1 year ago, your family faced total bankruptcy due to Julian's illegal data breach. The entity that saved you, Vanguard Defense Intelligence LLC, is 100% owned, operated, and funded by Captain Ashley Vance's military assets. Because you and Julian committed grand larceny tonight by illegally transferring deeds and draining a protected defense credit line, your corporate indemnity and housing contracts are permanently terminated." Marcus turned to the relatives and investors. "As of 10 minutes ago, the firm is fully liquidated, the asset foreclosure is active, and Julian Vance is officially disqualified from corporate operations due to active federal theft investigations." "No, no, Mom, do something!" Julian screamed, collapsing onto the floor, clutching his head as his entire fake wealthy lifestyle, career, and future turned to ash in front of the city's elite. Within seconds, 2 military police officers stepped into the room, slapping handcuffs on his wrists and dragging him out kicking and screaming. My mother dropped to her knees, crying hysterically, reaching out toward my pristine uniform. "Ashley, sweetie, please, we are your family. Your brother will go to jail. We will lose the estate. Please tell them it's a mistake." I walked up to the edge of the table, looking down at my weeping mother and ruined brother. The agonizing pain that had crushed my heart for years was entirely gone. In its place was a beautiful, unyielding wall of self-respect. "You told 85 people to stop pretending I'm a hero, Julian. You told everyone my service was a low-class joke." I looked at my mother, who was trembling on the floor. "The truth is, my uniform paid for your freedom, your business, your gala, and your status. But tonight, I am taking it all back. You have 24 hours to pack your trash bags and get out of my grandfather's estate. Don't ever call me family again." Julian wept openly into his hands, completely ruined. My mother covered her face in absolute social shame as all 85 guests began running for the exits, completely abandoning the fraudulent Vance family to avoid federal association. Within minutes, the grand ballroom was completely empty. General Thomas smiled proudly, lowering his salute. "Excellent discipline, Captain. Your transport is waiting. Let's get you back to the command, where true honor is respected." "Thank you, sir." I stepped out into the cool night air, leaving the tears and shattered egos behind. I spent my entire life destroying my own boundaries to buy the love of a family that only valued greed and status. But as I watched the taillights of the federal vehicles disappear down the driveway, I finally understood the ultimate lesson. You can never cure a toxic family with your own sacrifice. True honor means knowing your worth, drawing an unbreakable line, and letting karma handle the rest.